Welcome to Unapologetically Sensitive, a place to find connection and a sense of belonging, where you can learn, relate, laugh, and maybe even live a bolder, brighter life. I'm your host, Patricia Young. This is a weekly podcast where we talk about sensitivity and the richness that it adds, the strengths we have because of our sensitivity, and some of the challenges it poses as well. The information in this podcast is not a substitute for help from a licensed mental health professional. Hey there. To the creatives, healers, sensitives, and deep thinkers, how the heck are you? I feel like it's been forever since I've done a bonus episode and just checked in with how y'all are doing. There's been so much going on, and as I'm creating new content, I want to start over. My editor and I have been working on creating content to market the online HSP courses. They're so valuable. So I've just been working in overdrive trying to get those done. And I just have not had time to sit down and do a bonus episode. There's so much to share. What I really wanted, my intention to focus on with you, I don't know if it'll happen. I've really been thinking about this idea of my tagline, which is sensitivity is nothing to apologize for. It's our superpower. My understanding is that Dr. Aron, who coined the trait highly sensitive person, sees the trait as being neutral, which I agree with. It's not good or bad. It's just how we're wired. And I think it really adds a lot of validation to those of us that felt like there was something wrong with us. When I interviewed Elaine Aron, she also, instead of saying the non-HSP, she referred to people that aren't HSPs as the other 80%. And I did reach out to ask her about that. I don't think that she saw my message. It's never my intention to create a better than, worse than, us and them type of situation. And my guess is that when Dr. Aron talked about there not being anything intrinsically special or unique about being a highly sensitive person, I'm going to make an assumption, I could be wrong, that she just wanted to talk about the trait as something that is, it's not good or bad. I've often had questions about, is it wrong or inappropriate, or is there something about calling being a highly sensitive person or sensitive a superpower? I really struggle with this. And again, my intention is never to make a division between HSPs and non-HSPs, or we're better than, worse than. Anytime we do that, it's the same side of the coin if we go to either extreme. And what I talk to you about all the time is both and. So sensitivity can be challenging, and it also comes with gifts and strengths. And my intention is that we tend to be so marginalized in the way that our society is set up, that our culture values independence and being strong and being productive, that oftentimes the gifts and strengths that we have, there are just so many subtle messages about why it's not okay to stop crying, don't be a baby, don't make such a big deal out of it, just move on. And I see things even about, I never want to throw anybody under the bus, but I even see things about overthinking and how that's bad. And if we come wired to be deep thinkers, deep processors, we chew things over until we fully understand them. We look for meaning. We feel things deeply. We're incredibly empathic and caring, and we notice things that others don't. These are strengths. It's how we're wired. And because so many of us have gotten so many negative messages about how we show up in the world, my intention in using the word superpower is really to empower people to see that the things that we think may be wrong with us really are strengths. And I believe that. So I've had this ongoing debate in my head of, should I not have called it superpowers? It's already my tagline. I've said it in almost 200 episodes. I just thought I'd sit down and talk about it. And I think anytime you're in a marginalized group and you receive negative messages, we have to do something to look at what those negative messages are and to see, is this really about me? Is it something negative? Is it because somebody doesn't understand my trait? And quite often, the messages that we receive are from people that aren't wired the way that we are. They don't have the same insights and perceptions and depth of emotions. And so instead of saying, I don't understand why you have such a strong response to something, or I don't understand why you're still thinking about this, they give us a message that there's something wrong with us, that we're too analytical, we're too dramatic, we're too intense. Instead of saying, gosh, I don't have those responses that you do, and it's interesting to me, and I don't understand it. And so we internalize that. I mean, this is a very big oversimplification. I think many of us grew up in families where our parents just didn't understand. They didn't know about the trait. Nobody talked about this. Maybe our parents didn't know about it. It's not my intention to blame or fault anybody, but when we've got that wounding with the overlay of the trait, we get messages when we're young that it's not okay to have big feelings or to be concerned about things or to worry about things or to be more cautious or conscientious. The message that we get is how we're wired and how we show up in the world is not okay. We start to make ourselves smaller or to fit into whatever our parents need us to be. And I've talked about this a lot, that my mom was a single parent. She came from a very abusive family. The fact that she survived and was able to raise me as a single parent is amazing. There were positive things in my childhood, and there were a number of things that were just challenging for my mom to handle, and I internalized things. And I'm realizing that I really made myself very, very small, that it wasn't okay to be loud. It wasn't okay to be boisterous. Even physically, as an adult now, being like big with my body, dancing and being silly and making noise and jumping and just being full is very challenging for me. And one of the wounds that I have is that wound of feeling like I'm too much. The chances of me ever spontaneously blurting out something that's inappropriate is very, very unlikely, because in order to survive, I really had to suppress so much of my thoughts and my feelings and spontaneity. It's been a process to allow that to come back. But that was what I needed to do to survive. And again, I'm not blaming my mom. I'm just naming what happens, that we learn these ways to survive. And then as adults, if those things don't work for us, we need to figure out how to change those. And so a lot of what my own healing has been about is knowing that I have a right to be here. I have a right to my feelings. I have a right to take up space. It's okay to be loud. It's okay to upset people. My feelings are okay. If other people have a reaction to my feelings, that's about them. It's our responsibility to do the healing, but I really do wonder, is it wrong, inappropriate, I don't know what the word is, to talk about superpowers? For me, I'm just going to have to say, I don't know how else to frame it, and I do see it as a both and not an either or. I do have depth of processing and strong emotional responses to things. And that's what makes me able to connect and have a podcast and have great relationships. I feel like I'm kind of stumbling around with my words here. I'm curious to know, what are your thoughts? If I remember, I will put up a poll in the closed Facebook group, Unapologetically Sensitive. It's hard because I'm recording a little further out now, and these are not things that I'm really great at tracking. So if somebody is in the Unapologetically Sensitive group and I haven't created a poll, would you be my executive functioning and gently remind me? Because I'm really curious to know what you think about that. And I really don't want anybody to see the trait as being better than or worse than, but I think that when we know who we are, how we're wired, what we need, what we're thinking, what we're feeling, and we feel good about that, that's how we become empowered. We become educated and empowered. And if somebody does say something like, you can't let that go, we can go, gosh, what comes up for you when you think that I'm not letting something go, and why is letting something go important to you? We don't have to take those things on. I feel like I'm just not being super articulate today, and I keep looking at, I've only talked for 8 minutes, and that's not enough for an episode, and do I have other things to say? And the dilemmas. I had a podcast recording this morning with someone I've really wanted to have on the podcast for a long time. It's been incredibly hard to schedule. We had all kinds of technical difficulties, and the guest decided that it just wasn't worth it, which I understand, and I'm disappointed. And it's very interesting that I've been painfully aware of the lack of diversity of guests that I have. And I made a commitment this year to have more diversity on the podcast with everything that's going on in the world. And now we're really looking at systemic racism and Black Lives Matter. And just all of the injustices that have happened that I'm challenged to speak about articulately. I feel like to not have more diversity and to not address some of these things is to be complicit, having white privilege, it's not cis privilege, but I just feel a real calling to change that. And I have to say that when it didn't work to do this recording, I thought, well, it gives me an opportunity to find somebody that's got a little bit more diversity. I just want to name what's going on. And it's hard for me to know, you, the listener, if that's something that you want to hear, if it's something that's off-putting. The systems need to change. It's just not okay to have the things that are going on in the world, some of the things going on in the world that are going on in the world. And I'm not going to mention them because I think it can be traumatizing. But if you have your ear to the ground, you will know what I'm talking about. And we need to be the change, and we need to raise awareness. We need to look at these things. I feel like this episode is a flop. I just have to trust that it's fine. It's okay to just jump on for a little quick hello to see how you're doing. Yeah. I don't know. So how are you all doing? How are... I don't like this episode. So it's really going to be a test for me to see, can I edit it down? Can I allow myself to just show up in a little bit and not in a full episode to talk about something and just let it go? I don't know. I hope you are all doing well. I hope you are having a sense of rest and peace, empowerment, a little bit of body movement, some good connection. It's been a hard year to have that sense of connection. I love hearing from you. You can always send me an email at unapologeticallysensitive@gmail.com. We've got merch for the podcast now at patriciayounglcsw.com. I'm making all kinds of content on TikTok and putting it on Instagram. If you go to my website at unapologeticallysensitive.com, there are links to my social media handles. I think that's it. Remember, sensitivity is nothing to apologize for. It's our superpower. Have a blessed day.